Hi there, this is a series called We're the World, and we prepared 5 episodes where we talk and listen and sometimes ramble on different topics. You're now listening to part 2 of the series Debunking Cultural Myth.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to We Are the World podcast.
I'm Dan Young speaking for South Korea.
Yet I'm also speaking for South Korea.
I'm Akshara speaking for India.
I'm Sana speaking for Poland.
This episode, we are going to continue to debunk myths. Just a short disclaimer about how we all respect the countries and their traditions. The cultures we are going to mention are just out of curiosity, and please note that even though we do represent each country, we are not representing this country as a whole. Even though the things we are going to mention may be sensitive politically, historically, or culturally, this is the exact reason why we are doing this episode, to share and be informed on different perspectives on different topics. Our purpose for this episode is to gain a better understanding of each other's countries, but also to learn how other people see our countries. For this episode, we will focus on South Korea and India. First, we have a myth from South Korea. So, do Koreans hate Japanese people?
This myth, the relationship between Korea and Japan has, I think, for me personally, been the first myth that I've wanted to clarify the most. But before giving you like a definite, not definite, but like a general answer, I want to talk about the historical context between Korea and Japan. So, starting from 1910 to 1945, the Japanese colonized Korea. And of course, like every other country who got colonized from other countries, the Japanese colonization led to like detrimental consequences, like the presence of comfort women. These are women sexually abused by the Japanese military. And we also experienced like a loss of national identity because people were forced to speak Japanese in schools and they were forced to change their names to Japanese style names. So if you think about these stuff, like it's an obvious and natural thing that people generally don't have a good impression of Japan, right? Because it's the same thing as if a person hurt your family or your friend, you don't think of that person as a good person, right? So it's just a natural thing. And personally, I also thought that Japanese and Japan as a country as a whole was really bad and like just bad and evil when I was in elementary school. And I'm pretty sure that also Yedam kind of thought about this too when she was young.
True.
Yeah. But however, the thing is, as I grew older, I started to realize that this emotion to hate Japanese was just not the right thing to do. And what's even worse is that the government, like the Korean government, is trying to use our hatred emotions to achieve the political gains. So while the fundamental solution would be to find peace, right? To find peace between Japan and Korea, they keep on provoking our citizens' hating emotions toward Japan.
Yeah, true.
Just to like exaggerate our hatred emotions.
Yeah.
I have to say, if that makes sense. So I feel like what the Korean government should do would be like learn from Japan the things that are superior than us, and also maintain this kind of international peace. Not like, oh, you did this to our country in the past, so you should do this for us. Those kind of stuff. We should stop doing that. And so the answer for this myth, do Koreans hate Japanese people, would be not me, but there could be some people, but absolutely not me.
I think that's very relatable to me because there is like tension between India and Pakistan too, and I read a few books from like Pakistani people's perspective, and they have like similar views as Indians do about like hatred against each other and like thinking of the other country as like the evil one. And so yeah, I kind of like right now I kind of see them as like, just two rival nations, and like, with growing hatred for whatever reason. But I too thought of Pakistan as like the evil country before, because yeah.
Yeah, so I think for Poland it's also a little bit relatable because we had the conflict with Russia, like taking over the government or something, and but not the hatred, but like the conflict is with the government, not with the people itself. Is it like that in Korea that you don't necessarily hate the people, just the individual people, but the Japan as a whole
Oh.
more?
I think it's like for both, like the government, because what I was educated in my childhood, like in elementary, like the textbooks. Okay, not the textbook, but what I've heard constantly from like adults and like my peers was that the Japanese government never apologized to the Korean government. But then, so the thing is, like, I don't know the truth between Japan and Korea. So it's, but in the past, I thought that the Japanese were always wrong and they had to like apologize to our comfort woman and stuff like that. But then I realized that they already did multiple times, and so I was just really confused. But if I want to answer your question, I guess people who don't realize like the things I've realized right now, they they hate. I mean, yeah, they tend to hate the government, the Japanese government, and the individuals, which is kind of absurd, honestly.
Yeah, I like totally agree with you. um, okay, so for me, like as same as Danyang, when I was like in elementary school, I remember like all the like students at the same age as me was like so against the Japan, and but I feel like if I think about it now, I feel like rather than actually like stating the truth, they're picking the most extreme things,
Yeah.
like the part of
that
the
is so
Japanese people
true.
do,
Yes.
and then say it as like the like all the Japanese people do. For example, like in middle school, I still remember like one of my friend was like, "Hey, I heard that in Japan they have this like eraser that has like the Korean flag in it, and they use it so that like as they use more eraser, it erased the flag of the Korea." And then yeah, I know. And then yeah, if I now think about it, it's kind of stupid because I know that like it's not really true. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I think with India, however, it was like a more religious thing. Like even before like the India and Pakistan partition, there was tension between Hindus and Muslims, and there still is. So it's kind of, and like Pakistan being a Muslim majority country and Hindu being a Hindu, India being a Hindu majority country. Um, I think when people are like hating on the other country, they try to pick out aspects of their culture
Yeah, true.
and their religion to
Oh.
hate on them. So that's just, I think, one thing that's kind of similar
Yeah.
but also different.
Yeah.
So China, very relatable to Japanese because they attempted to colonize China as well in history. As well, yeah, I was also gonna think. So when I was small, just like you two, Danyang and Yaram, my grandparents, more so like the elderlies, would tell me all this bad stuff about how Japanese people did this and that and that. However, now that I think of it, it's like they're just talking about the mistakes that have been made. And the thing is that I think it's more logical and even better for healing to actually think about how you can't really change the past, and it is in history and it should be still recorded because it's something that did happen and it's an event that should be put into history books. But it's like a place for learning instead of like mourning, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
That's actually a good statement.
So the next myth, are South Koreans all very smart, Yeram and Danyang?
Okay, so based on my research, so according to the worldpopulation.com and other sources, Korea is the third country with the highest IQ of 106, followed by Singapore and Hong Kong. So I think the reason why Koreans are perceived as smart people, quotation mark, is because of the competitive society Korea has, rather than like the natural brain they have.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I totally understand.
So so after like there was this period that like our parents and grandparent generation experienced, really like poor, like in poverty. I think the parents want to push their children more so they can be successful in the future. So now it's really common for like most of the children go to like a tutor and academics, and that became so common that this kind of like sending children to like academies became kind of like one of the image of South Korea. Um, and it's so common for Korean students to proceed their curriculum that most of the middle school students are doing high school math and other subjects like that. Um, Also, high school itself also has the system which the students study until night, like 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. And there's even law for academics to shut down, no, close, to prevent overstudying of students, which is 11 p.m.